The day with my face kind of, I don't know, got allergies bad when I'm mowing. I wore a mask too, so if anyone's wondering, it didn't help. I need one to cover I need goggles too, I think. We had a great night, Friday night. We had our game night, had some fun. Next Sunday, we have a guest speaker coming from Singapore. He's the director of the School of Preaching in Singapore that we support. And so he'll be coming that Sunday morning with his wife. Actually, they'll be here Saturday, and they'll be leaving Monday. So, but they'll be here. His name is Peter Chen. His wife's name is Pui Fun. I hope I don't know if I'm even pronouncing it right. I've never met her. I've met him. Yeah, oh, she was. Okay, so I have met her. I'm usually good about remembering that. Today, the first, whenever we moved here in 2006, it was the first Sunday of April. So this is our 17-year anniversary this Sunday. So, doesn't feel like it's been 17 years, but y'all got kids that are grown. Me too. And it's been good being here, and it will continue to be, I pray. But we're going to start here with prayer in just a minute. I think Joel's friend that was stabbed is out of the hospital now, right? So he's doing well. I spoke with Jack Friday, not this Jack, Joel's friend Jack, whose uncle was hit on the side of the freeway. He's doing a little better, or he's home, I think. No, he's not home. He is home. Okay, he was telling me both hands were completely shattered, several broken ribs, a clavicle broken, sternum. It was very painful for him, I'm sure. So let's remember all of those individuals in our prayers. And of course, the Stevens will be traveling back this week from Israel. Let's remember them and their group. Was there anyone else before I lead us in a prayer for our Bible study that we need to update? Yes, Brent?
I was just going to say, next Saturday, me and Katie are going to Georgia for a week on vacation, so we won't be here next Sunday.
Oh, okay. Well, you guys have a safe trip. We'll pray for y'all. Yes?
Joseph texted me this morning. She's having a problem with kidney stones, and she won't be here today.
I hate kidney stones. Yes, we'll pray for Trish.
We have a Christian friend that just diagnosed stage 3 ovarian cancer. She's having surgery tomorrow.
Okay. All right. And if these are new, fresh prayer requests, don't forget to give those to Patrick so he can get those uploaded. Yes?
21 people that got killed last night.
Last night?
Yeah, they had bad storms come through there, tornadoes shut down in that area.
Again? Wow.
Like I said, it was last night.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know that the tornadoes kind of went through that area when it passed through Shreveport. So, okay, again.
This is more on the Little Rock area.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. Because it was a few nights ago.
But it still need to be prayed.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, man.
21 people.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Tragic.
Okay. All right, then. Let's all bow together. We'll go to God in prayer. Our Father, thank you for opening our eyes this morning, for the breath that we were able to take as we left our beds to prepare ourselves to come together today to study from your word and to gather together to worship you in spirit and in truth. And I ask, Father, that you would help us to remain humble and open-minded, but still courageous in our efforts to serve you, Father. There are so many who are on our hearts and minds this morning, particularly with the tornadoes that have been occurring recently in our country, and those who have lost their lives and those who have lost family members. I ask, Father, that you would bless those families and those who have lost homes. May they find comfort and assistance in their time of need. I ask, Father, that you would be with those of our congregation who are traveling, be with Brent and Karen, and then also Brent and Katie. And also, Father, I pray that you would bless Darren as he travels for work this week, and then so many others, I'm sure, that we ask that you would help us as we attend to those who are hurting or in need, Father. May we be able to comfort them and share your blessings with them. Pray, Father, that you would be with those who are dealing with cancers and surgeries and treatments. And we thank you for so many answered prayers, Father, that are a blessing to our lives. I ask now you bless our teachers and students as we all endeavor to grow in the grace and knowledge of your Son, Jesus Christ. In his name, amen. So, we are on forgiving God. Forgiving God, I know I've mentioned this several times, seems like a strange title for a lesson, right? But we've looked at forgiving ourselves and forgiving others and how God forgives us. Forgiving God is not that God needs our forgiveness, but that we need to realize that God doesn't need our forgiveness. More on the idea of helping us to understand why we face suffering in our lives, why we face trials in our lives, and how we can remain pleasing to God throughout those trials. I went ahead and printed a few extra of the copies of the handout, so if anybody needs one right now, it's a good time to raise your hand. I'll pass that out. Hebrews 12:11 is where I'd like for us to turn. That's our memory verse for this particular set of studies. And we should be finishing up our study on forgiveness before the end of the year. I'm being facetious, but who knows? But anyone else? Okay, no, we should only have a few more lessons here, and we'll study the subject of grace, as I've mentioned a few times. Yes, sir. You want one of those? Yeah. I may have neglected to put that on there. I did get the right bulb for the projector, so you won't need a songbook today. What were you doing when the planes struck the towers? Driving to work? Teaching? Home, school, sick. From school, sick. You were home from work sick, okay. You were at work. For those of you who were at work, I'm wondering, did work stop for a moment? Yeah. Yeah. For a lot of people, work stopped all day, yeah.
I was preparing a lot of so
Okay. Seriously? Oh, you were on base? You were on a submarine. Okay, so he wins.
I was watching it, but
thought it was a movie. And I stood there and watched the second plane hit the second tower. And I said, this is, commercial, all that kind of stuff. So I watched it for a moment, and I went into the building, because that was in the lobby of the building. I went in, when I came back out, that's when the newsmen were all, and that's when I realized that it was
real.
real.
Yeah. I bet it didn't seem real when it first happened. I was at the Memphis School of Preaching. Actually, I was in my apartment getting ready. And I would normally turn the television on, let the news play in the background while I was getting ready to go in. And when it happened while I was doing that. Tim?
I was just gonna say, I was driving to work when it happened, but I was working in a bank, so I had to convince everyone not to take the money out of their accounts, because it was a busy day.
I bet it was. For us at the Memphis School of Preaching, we continued on as usual with our classes, but there was an awful lot more pausing for prayer throughout the day. It was a strange day, wasn't it? It was something we'd not faced before as far as a terrorist attack. I know some of you may have had other experiences in your past that maybe you could compare, but there was a picture, a very compelling picture, that was posted in the news not long after that. There was the debris from the tower, and there was the EMS workers in the background, and the ambulance is there in the photo, and there are several EMS workers just trying to help people out of the building, out of the rubble, and there's a traffic light in the photo as well. And the traffic light is still working, and the traffic light is green. And it's interesting, and I don't think it was an accident that there's a traffic light that's green at the time that they take this picture. Probably some very intelligent photographer or someone set this up, because what we want to do when tragedy hits is red light, right? Sometimes we want to completely stop everything that's going on in our lives, and we just shut down. And we can't really function at that point. We're not doing anything we want. We're just completely overwhelmed. Or we get that, that yellow caution light, where from that point forward, we're paranoid that it's going to happen again. I'm probably right there with my truck right now, because I don't know when the radiator hose is going to pop off again. And I don't mean to downplay this other thing, but how long after 9/11 were we waiting for another attack? And then, of course, the Pentagon, the planes crashed there. And then what were we doing after that? We're looking for others. We're waiting for others. And it was years and years before, and even today, if something like that happened, would we be as surprised as we were on 9/11? I don't think so. But what this green light really signified was that, sooner or later we have to pick ourselves up, push ourselves forward, and go on living our lives. I know that is a lot easier said than done, because when life gets tough, when life hurts us, we usually want to hide and wonder where God is. Is God on our side? We go back, kind of looking through our lives and examining ourselves, kind of doing what Paul had said to the Corinthians. Examine yourself, and you're looking, it's like, am I slipping somewhere? Is God chastening me here? And in some instances, we are simply in a situation where we're just going through a trial, a faith expanding exercise. And I want to ask this very personal question here, which is the first question in the second part of our handout under Study Harder questions. If you don't mind, share with others a time when you felt like God let you down. That might be tough, because does God ever let us down? No. But sometimes in our own way of thinking, we could probably come to that conclusion. Or, no, let's back up. We know that God never lets us down. But what we know and what we feel doesn't always match, does it? So we might feel like we've been let down, but we know that we haven't, but it's still hard to reconcile those things. Does someone, before any comments, let's read Hebrews 12:11. Hebrews 12:11. Can I get a volunteer? Fred, you want to read that for us?
All discipline for the moment seems not to be joyful and sorrow. Yet the Lord has restrained back, afterward it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness.
It doesn't seem pleasant when it's happening, right? We're going through that trial. Does anyone have a comment on the question? Does anyone want to discuss the question? If you don't mind, share with others a time when you felt like God let you down. Yes, sir.
Yeah, one Sunday, I mean, my mom has been fighting cancer, and one Sunday, she called and tells us that it's throughout her whole body. And so, I had to change the oil in the car, so I just couldn't leave. So I waited till Monday, changed oil, went that way, and she wasn't conscious from that morning on. And so when I first get there at the hospital, I'm, oh my God, really? I mean, you couldn't allow, because she was fine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and just, I was a little frustrated with God, like, God, really? You couldn't allow her to stay awake enough for me to say goodbye? And so we get there, and the nurses are telling us that, she's still here, she's still, and I'm questioning that. I asked them several times that, and, but God, as angry as I was at God, we all visited with her,
Mm-hmm.
and they went home. I stayed with her. I told them I'd stay with her that night, and I got a hold of her hand, and she passed away that night. And I felt like, well, thank you, God.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't have been so angry with you.
Mm-hmm.
You at least allowed me that chance to hold my mom's hand as she passed away, and she wasn't alone. And so I was angry though at first, and then I was like, thank you so much, God.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry.
No, that's exactly what I'm mentioning earlier. It's first we jump to conclusions sometimes with those things, and our thinking doesn't always match up with what we're feeling, and our feelings can get ahead, right? They can get ahead of us, and what a blessing it is to have hindsight, to be able to look back and to see, hey, you know what? I didn't realize just how God was blessing me to actually allow me to be here, because it could have been that you didn't have that time, but you were given that blessing of time. Diane?
I was just gonna say, during that time when Melissa was so sick and then she passed, the beginning stages of grief were, where are you, God?
Mm-hmm.
Until I realized, we haven't 39 years, and it took me a little while to get there.
That's right. Diane's mentioning her and Dave's daughter that passed away when she was only 39 years old. She was sick for quite a while, and well, whenever they always say that, right? A parent shouldn't have to outlive their child, and so there's a lot of questions even whenever it's not our children, whenever it's our spouse, or whenever it's even when it's our 80-year-old grandparents. I'll say 90 because some of you are 80, so 90 90-year-old. You're welcome. Sorry, I wasn't thinking far enough ahead there. And Miss Betty, I'm so glad to see you feeling better and here today. Yes. Anyone else before? Yes, ma'am.
My husband passed away, and he was 31 years old.
Oh, wow.
And I had 2 small kids.
Mm-hmm.
I was a stay-at-home mom, and I had just signed up for college, and I had to go back to college 2 weeks after he died.
Wow.
It was hard.
That must have caused you to ask some questions, right? And let me just say, sometimes we think that those questions are inherently wrong to ask. But look at the book of Psalms and how many questions the psalmist will ask God throughout that. And it's very reminiscent of the book of Job. Now God will get David. Ryan did a devotional for us at the game night Friday night, and he went to Job 41, where God speaks about Leviathan, and which is this ferocious creature that he describes there. And after he's done describing it, basically God's telling Job, no one on earth can handle this thing, right? You can't tame it. You can't make it your pet. You can't spear it. You can't hook it. This isn't happening. And I created this. And you're questioning me. This thing is so powerful, so majestic, so amazing that mankind marvels at it. And I created it. And you're questioning me. And what was God trying to express to Job is that if I can make this, Job, I've got the rest of this. I can handle the rest of this. And of course, what would God ask Job to do? Do you know how the wind works? Do you know how the water cycle works? Do you know how the seas work? Do you know how all these seasons work? No, you don't know all of these things. You don't know how to handle the weather, but I do. And that's comforting that even though Job, in all that Job was going through, what was Job's answer after God asked him all of those questions? Did Job attempt to answer? No. He just said, you know what? I can't do this. I can't handle this. I should have kept my mouth shut in all of this. But Job went through a similar situation, but then came to a similar realization that, okay, God is in control, and God doesn't necessarily want Job to suffer, but Job will be okay. Job 23 verses 2 and following, though, says, "Today my complaint is bitter. My hand is heavy on account of my groaning. Oh, that I knew where I might find him, that I might come even to his seat. I would lay my case before him and fill my mouth with arguments. I go forward, but he is not there, and backward, but I do not perceive him, and to the left hand where he is working, I do not behold him. He turns to the right, but I do not see him." He felt like he had a right to fuss about this, a legitimate right. He would say in chapter 7, verse 1, "I will not restrain my mouth. I will speak in the anguish of my spirit. I will complain in the bitterness of my soul." The problem is that Job's premise is incorrect. That on which he has based his right to argument is incorrect. He thinks he has right to argument because he's being punished, right? But Job's not being punished. Job wants to be able to stand before God and say, God, I didn't do it. God already knows you didn't do it, Job. And that's not why you're suffering. You're suffering because of Satan, and God would bless him in the long run. But how long? He wants to know how long. David would ask a similar question of God. How long? Actually, David asks that question at least 4 times in the book of Psalms. Psalm 13, 1 through 3 says, How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I take counsel in my soul and have sorrow in my heart all the day? How long? Jesus would quote from the book of Psalm and on the cross, Matthew 27:43, showing us that passage from Psalm 24. Anyway, all right. Anyone else before we move on to the second question? Chris?
One thing that I do think gets missed with Job is that it's not that Job was questioning God and God immediately came down and said, nope, can't question. God's response comes after chapters and chapters of Job reasoning and discussing and continually questioning. Because I don't want us to get the idea that questioning God in and of itself is bad, because it's a natural part of being human. It's just we cannot continually wallow in cause our own suffering to get worse by just continually.
Well, I mean, if he continued in this, what's going to happen? He's going to eventually become extremely bitter and turn against God. What Job shows us is, like you said, human nature, but it's if you have questions, ask them. If you have questions, ask them. A lot of times asking those questions, we will find the answers, or we will come to find the answers, but the answers we seek are in His Word. We're not looking for supernatural responses to our questions, but it is, if God, I'm glad you pointed out the amount of time that Job was asking these questions. It gives us enough time to see Job's thought process as he's going through this, as he's experiencing everything that he's going through, and where he goes with it. And then God would respond to Job, not to show Job who's in charge, not to flex, right? I think of Adam and Eve in the garden after they'd sinned, and what's the question that God asks them? Where are you? Omniscient God asks Adam and Eve, where are you? Does God know where they are? Yeah, but do they? They don't quite understand where they are, spiritually speaking. Well, what about Job? It gives him opportunity to understand, to come to understand his situation. Much like Brian coming to understand his situation where he thought he'd lost out on a blessing, he actually had gained one. All right, next question, Wilberta, did you, I saw your hand.
Always get an understanding though.
That's true.
I was a Hannah, and Jim is an only boy, his dad is an only boy, his granddad was an only boy. And I wanted a boy. We don't have a boy. We have 2 beautiful daughters, one adopted and one biological, 34 foster kids, but we don't have a son. I don't know why, but God does.
Yeah. Well, if you, and it's like you said, we don't know why. It could be, though, that if you had your son, you'd have been content and you wouldn't have needed to foster 34 kids. But God needed you to foster 34 kids.
I don't know.
I don't know either. And I know a lot of you got some questions, though, come the moment after judgment, right? To say, hey, what was going on right here? I'd like to know. And I hope you get your answers. Now, second question. Why does God let us suffer? Yes, there is a biblical answer. Why does God let us suffer? Okay, if you don't suffer, you don't grow. That's true. I went through a stage of where I went to the gym like 4 times a week. And some of you can remember and still make jokes about the couple of days after leg day whenever I'd hobble into the pulpit and I could barely climb the steps and I couldn't sit down in my pew. It's the saying, no pain, no gain, right? And that's true of us spiritually. We grow in this. James chapter 1, verses 1 through 3. Anyone else? Wouldn't have a need to ask for help if we didn't suffer. And that is very true. And where does the blessed nation of Israel almost always end up? In trouble, and not realizing that they needed God. It's the same with the judges, right? The judges would deliver Israel over and over again, but then there'd be a time of peace and everything's going well. There's no times of trouble, and then they find themselves away from God. But that suffering, that chastisement, Hebrews 12, verse 11, brings them back.
It allows us also to have compassion.
Yes. Allows us to have compassion for others. Empathy. You can't empathize with someone, if you've not gone through what they have, not in a very deep way, at least. Okay, it's a testing of faith. Yeah, and even for you, that you can see that, hey, I'm capable here.
I think God has made us on purpose to crave a struggle, to crave a need to push into something, to struggle against something, to want the human drama to.
Oh, we fight, don't we?
we love conflict, but we can do it in a way that's productive. But when we don't do it productively, we still want it anyway.
Oh.
Forward in places that's not ethical. We like hero movies because we observe the hero overcoming the villain. We want that. We have that in ourselves to want to overcome something, no matter. But it's whenever we have nothing to overcome that we focus on things that are less about using that energy to make something good out of it instead of.
Yeah. Turn with me to Genesis. I like you see the struggle throughout the book, throughout the Bible. There's always conflict, struggle, and growth. And the issue we're currently discussing is that of when these trials come and we're questioning God and or we feel a little let down. Consider Genesis chapter 2 with me. Look at verses 16 and 17. Genesis chapter 2. Before we read 16 and 17, I wonder what you think. Adam has watched and beheld creation. Adam sees that there is male and female of everything that God has created except man. Adam is alone. And what does God say whenever he beholds Adam alone? It's not good. It's not good for man to be alone. And so God, from Adam, creates Eve. This is complete speculation, but how do you think Adam felt beholding Eve? Her name means living, right? So we call her the mother of all living. How do you think he felt? Excited. Excited for sure. I mean, here now I've got someone like me I can talk to. Surely excited, blessed even. Do you think? Well, let's read 16 and 17. Somebody have that for me? They want to read? Tim.
And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, from any tree of the garden you may eat freely, but from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for in the day that you eat from it you shall surely die.
All right. Do you think at any point Adam might have been disappointed at times? I mean, yeah, he had this great blessing in his life, but that same great blessing, Eve, also brought sin into his life. What about Rachel? Do you think Rachel was disappointed? You know, Rachel was blessed with a child from God. She names him Joseph. Which, does anyone know what the name Joseph means? The name Joseph means the Lord shall add to me another son. All right? The Lord shall add to me another son. So she's optimistic here that God's going to bless her again now that she's been blessed. Her second son's name is Ben-Oni. Ben-Oni. Do you know what that name means? That name means son of my sorrow. Do you know why? No, because she died. She died giving birth to him. And so disappointment. What about Joseph? You think Joseph was ever disappointed? I mean, sure, at the end when he's talking to his brothers, and what does he tell his brothers? You know, you meant this to me for harm or for ill will, but God meant it for good to bless all. But this is an older Joseph, right, who's been through all of these things and has grown in his faith and understanding. And so I thought I had more time, but that clock is slow back there. But how about Joseph disappointed because his brothers sold him into slavery? That disappointment probably started when they threw him in the hole first.
I'd probably been more disappointed if it's been 7 years in prison.
There you go. And that was where I wanted to go next. He's been accused of impropriety with what's his name? Potiphar's wife. And she falsely accuses him of this. And, well, no one likes to be falsely accused. And that's one of my, I don't know about you, but that one bothers me more than a lot of stuff. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, you too. So yeah, disappointed there that was the situation, or just Genesis 40, of course, is where 40 through 50 is where we're talking about Joseph here. But we're stuck asking questions like, why did this happen to me? God, why did this happen to me? Are you really there? Aren't you in control? That's a big argument that a lot of our, those who oppose God, who don't believe in God, would say, that if God was truly here, he wouldn't allow these things to happen. Or if God was truly loving, he would not allow these things to happen. But as Olivia pointed out earlier, that suffering, without it, we would never even, if we just depended on ourselves. And if there was no suffering, there'd be no free will. Because without, for free will to exist, then some of us get our way, while others don't. And that would end up with resulting in this. Why did all these things have to happen to us? Let's turn over. Job chapter 1 is where we're going to. Nope. All right, we're going to begin our next class of 2 Corinthians 4:17. 2 Corinthians 4:17, and we should be able to, I don't have a whole lot of additional thoughts for this particular lesson. 2 Corinthians 4:17, we're going to talk about the temporal state of suffering. The temporal state of suffering before we move into our next lesson. The temporal state of suffering, there are three things in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 17 that Paul mentions about suffering. He says it's light, it's momentary, and it's helpful. So I'd like you to look at those three things: light, momentary, helpful. And we will talk about each one of those before moving on into our next lesson on the pieces of living with our broken past. And just continue to talk about forgiving God. All right, questions, comments before we finish up? Yes, sir.
Coming from somebody who wasn't following God before, going back to asking when we felt like God wasn't there for us, I wasn't following God, and there's a lot of things that happened to me then, and I didn't have any understanding. I had nowhere to turn to. You're just blaming him for things and you don't even know him. You haven't even started to read the Bible and start to know what his plans for you were. So it's a lot different now. Being able to read it and having someone to hope and pray and know that he's there for you, even through your hard time. Something you feel alone when you're going through it before.
Yeah, I didn't even know him. I like that statement. I didn't even know him. We make that statement when others falsely accuse us of things. You don't even know me. How can you make that judgment of me? You don't even know me. We'll make judgments about what we think God should do. And there's the answer. You don't even know me. That's a statement that Jesus said would be made on the day of judgment. Depart from me. I never knew you. And that goes both ways. Thank you for that, Brent. All right, we're done for this morning. We'll pick up with 2 Corinthians 4:17 next week. Thank you.